I was 7 years old when my uncle dropped me at a train station in Johnson City, Tennessee, and told me he'd be back in an hour. I sat on a wooden bench with a backpack that had one change of clothes and a granola bar, and I waited. I waited for 1 hour, then 2. Then I stopped waiting because even at 7 you understand the difference between someone who is late and someone who is not coming back. My uncle was not late. He was not coming back. He was at home, 4 miles away, in a house that my dead parents' money had purchased, making a bet with his wife about how long it would take me to come back crying. She said 30 minutes, he said an hour. They were both wrong. The answer was never. The 7-year-old they left at the train station did not come back crying. He did not come back at all. He walked to a gas station on West Market Street and told a stranger that his uncle had left him, and the stranger called the police, and the police called CPS, and CPS put me in a foster home, and I spent the next 11 years being raised by a system that keeps children alive without necessarily teaching them they matter. 20 years later, 20 years of foster homes and aging out in diesel engines and a rented house in Knoxville with a rescue dog named Hatchet, I woke up on a Tuesday morning in October 2025 to 28 missed calls on my phone, all from a 423 area code, Johnson City, a number I didn't recognize from a place I had been trying to forget since I was 7. One voicemail, a woman's voice, young, nervous, shaking in the way that voices shake when the person speaking knows that what they're about to say will detonate something. Rennick, this is Noelle Ledford. I'm your cousin, Darnell's daughter. I know you probably don't want to hear from us, but I found something in my dad's files. Something about your parents. Something he took from you. I need to tell you in person. Please call me back. And a text message. 5 words. He stole what was yours. I stared at those 5 words for approximately 40 minutes, sitting on the edge of my bed in the rented 2-bedroom on the east side of Knoxville, with Hatchet sleeping on the floor beside me, and the October light coming through the window, and those 5 words sitting on my phone screen like a fuse that had been lit 20 years ago and was only now reaching the charge. He stole what was yours. But before I tell you what my uncle stole, before I tell you about the $357,000 and the life insurance and the house in Asheville and the trust fund that was supposed to carry me to 18, and instead carried my uncle to a new truck and a bigger house and a life built on a dead couple's money, I need to tell you about the train station, because the train station is where Rennick Ledford began. Not born, began. I was born in Asheville, North Carolina, in 1998 to parents who loved me. I began in Johnson City, Tennessee in 2005 at a train station where nobody came. My parents were Monroe and Gretchen Ledford. My father was an electrician. My mother was a dental hygienist. They lived in a 3-bedroom house on a street with maple trees in Asheville that they bought in 2001 for $185,000 because my mother liked the front porch and my father liked the garage and they both liked the school district. They were not rich. They were not poor. They were the middle, the particular American middle where you have enough for a mortgage and a second car and a vacation every other summer, but not enough to stop worrying about the water heater. They died on I-40 near Asheville on a Wednesday in March 2005. A tractor-trailer crossed the median. The collision was immediate. They were both gone before anyone could respond. I was at school, 2nd grade. A teacher named Mrs. Hoffman pulled me out of class at 1:15 p.m. and walked me to the principal's office, where a woman from CPS was waiting, and the woman told me that my parents had been in a car accident and that they were gone, and I asked her what gone meant because at 7 years old, gone is a direction, not a condition, and the woman said, "They're not coming back, sweetheart." And that was the first time someone told me that a person I loved was not coming back, but it would not be the last. I had no grandparents. My mother's parents had died before I was born. My father's mother died in 2003. My father's father died in 1998, the year I was born. There was one relative, my father's older brother, Darnell Ledford. He lived in Johnson City, Tennessee, 70 miles north of Asheville. He was 32 years old, married to a woman named Faye, and had 2 children, Colby, who was 6, and Noelle, who was 3. Darnell agreed to take custody of me. Not because he wanted a nephew, because my parents had a will, and the will named Darnell as guardian, and attached to the guardianship was the estate. My parents had $240,000 in life insurance, 2 policies, $120,000 each, naming each other as primary beneficiary and me as contingent. They had a savings account with $47,000, and they had the house, which was worth approximately $210,000 with $140,000 left on the mortgage, roughly $70,000 in equity. Total, approximately $357,000. Every dollar my parents had managed to build in their working-class lives. All of it designated for me. All of it placed in a trust managed by my legal guardian. My legal guardian was Darnell Ledford, a used car salesman on State of Franklin Road in Johnson City who made $38,000 a year and had $62,000 in credit card and car loan debt. A man who looked at a 7-year-old orphan and saw not a child but a bank account with legs. I moved to Johnson City in April of 2005, 1 month after my parents died. I remember the drive, Darnell's truck, a faded red Dodge Ram with a cracked windshield and a pine tree air freshener that was supposed to smell like pine, but smelled like chemical disappointment. Faye was in the front seat. She didn't turn around to look at me once during the 70-mile drive. The house in Johnson City was smaller than my parents' house. 2 stories, 3 bedrooms, 1 for Darnell and Faye, 1 for Colby, 1 for Noel. I was given the couch, not temporarily, permanently. A couch in the living room with a blanket and a pillow, and the implicit understanding that a guest, even a permanent one, does not get a room. I was not enrolled in school. 5 months passed and Darnell never registered me. I don't know if this was negligence or strategy. An unenrolled child is an invisible child, and an invisible child doesn't have teachers asking questions about why he sleeps on a couch and wears the same clothes 3 days in a row. I was grieving. I wet the bed, the couch, regularly. I had nightmares. I cried in my sleep. These are normal responses for a 7-year-old whose parents have just died. Faye did not view them as normal. She viewed them as annoying. I heard her say to Darnell one night when they thought I was asleep, "That kid is too much work. I didn't sign up for this." "You didn't sign up for the kid, Faye. You signed up for the $357,000. On a Saturday in August 2005, 5 months after I arrived, Darnell told me to get in the truck. We drove to the train station, a small Amtrak stop on Depot Street in Johnson City. He parked, told me to get out. "Stay here. I'll be back in an hour." "Where are you going?" "I've got an errand. Just wait on the bench. I'll be back." "Can I come with you?" "No, wait here." He drove away. I sat on the bench. I had my backpack, 1 change of clothes, a granola bar, a Spider-Man action figure that had been my favorite toy since kindergarten, and that I had brought from my parents' house because it was the last physical object that connected me to a life where people came back when they said they would. I waited. 1 hour. 2 hours. The sun moved. The shadows changed. A train came and went. People walked past me, adults, commuters, station workers, and none of them stopped, because a 7-year-old on a bench is not unusual enough to investigate, and the world is full of children sitting in places where adults have left them. At approximately 5:30 p.m., 3 hours after Darnell dropped me off, I stopped waiting. I didn't make a conscious decision. Something in my 7-year-old brain simply recalculated. The input, Uncle said, 1 hour, 3 hours have passed, produced an output. He is not coming. And the output produced an action. Walk. I didn't walk toward Darnell's house. I didn't know the way well enough. I had been in Johnson City for 5 months, but Darnell had never walked with me anywhere, never driven me around the neighborhood, never oriented me to the city. I walked toward movement, toward lights, toward the gas station on West Market Street where a woman named Pauline Crutcher was filling up her car at 6 p.m. on a Saturday and saw a 7-year-old boy walking alone on the sidewalk with a Spider-Man backpack. "Where are your parents, honey?" "They died." Those 2 words. The most efficient summary of my life. 2 words that contained a tractor trailer on I-40 and a woman from CPS and a couch in Johnson City and a bench at a train station and the particular silence of an hour that becomes 2 hours, that becomes 3. Who are you with? My uncle, but he left me. Where did he leave you? At the trains. Pauline Crutcher did what Darnell Ledford should have done 5 months earlier. She called someone who could help. She called the police. Johnson City PD sent an officer. The officer took me to the station, called Darnell. Darnell panicked. It was a joke. I was teaching him independence. I was coming back. The officer didn't believe him. CPS was called. An investigator came to the house the next day, found no bedroom for the foster child, no school enrollment, minimal clothing, a child sleeping on a couch who had been abandoned at a train station by his legal guardian. CPS removed me from Darnell's custody in September 2005. Darnell was charged with child abandonment, a misdemeanor in Tennessee. He pled no contest, probation, lost custody permanently. I entered the Tennessee foster care system, 7 years old, no parents, no trust fund, though I didn't know about the trust fund. No family. Nothing except a Spider-Man action figure and the knowledge that the world contains 2 kinds of people. People who come back and people who don't. I spent 11 years in the system. 4 foster homes. Ages 7 to 18. The first home was in Kingsport, a couple who had 4 foster children and the organizational capacity of a sorting facility. I was fed, I was housed, I was not known. I lived there for 2 years, and the most personal thing they ever said to me was, "Pass the ketchup." The second home was different. Morristown, Tennessee. A woman named Gertrude Odom, 55 years old, widowed. Lived alone in a yellow house with a vegetable garden and a cat named President. Gertrude was the closest thing I had to a parent after my own. She taught me to cook, scrambled eggs first, then grilled cheese, then chili, then a full Sunday dinner that I would carry with me for the rest of my life as the taste of being valued. She enrolled me in school. She checked my homework. She did not hug me. Gertrude was not a hugger, but she sat with me at the kitchen table every evening and asked about my day with the genuine interest of a woman who considered the answer important. Gertrude died in 2010. A stroke. I was 12. I came home from school and found her on the kitchen floor, and I sat beside her until the ambulance came, and the paramedics told me she was gone, and gone meant the same thing it had meant 5 years earlier, not coming back. The third home was in Maryville. A couple who provided food and a bed and nothing else. Fine. I was used to fine. Fine is the baseline of the foster system, not terrible, not good, just the sustained absence of both. The fourth home changed my life. Knoxville. A man named Owen Jessup, retired long-haul trucker. 71 years old now. He was 60 when I arrived in 2014 at age 16. Owen fostered teenage boys because he had been a foster kid himself, decades earlier, in a different version of the same system, and he understood that the thing teenage boys need most is not supervision but presence. A man in the room. A man who shows up. A man who says good morning every day and means it. Owen taught me diesel engines. Not as a curriculum, as a shared activity. His garage had a 1987 Kenworth T600 that he was restoring, and he let me hand him tools, and then he let me hold the wrench, and then he let me do the work, and over 2 years of evenings in that garage I learned that I could fix things. That broken systems could be understood and repaired, that the thing that was wrong could be found and corrected if you were patient enough to look. I aged out of the foster system at 18 in 2016. No ceremony, no graduation. You turn 18 and the system stops. The checks stop. The social worker stops calling. The structure that kept you alive for 11 years simply ends, like a subscription you didn't know had a cancellation date. Owen didn't let me disappear. He helped me get a job at Ridgeway Fleet Services as an apprentice diesel mechanic. He let me sleep in his spare room for the first 3 months until I could afford a deposit on the rental house on the east side. He showed up to my first day of work and shook my hand and said, "You're going to be good at this, because you already know how to fix things that other people gave up on." I have been at Ridgeway for 9 years. I make $52,000 a year. I am the mechanic that dispatchers request for the complex jobs, The ones where the diagnostic doesn't match the symptom, and the engine is doing something that the manual doesn't explain. I fix those. Because Owen taught me patience, and my parents taught me steadiness, and the foster system taught me that if you wait long enough and look hard enough, you will find the broken part. I drive a 2015 Chevy Colorado. I rent a 2-bedroom house for $950 a month. I have a dog named Hatchet, a mutt I found at the Knoxville Animal Shelter 3 years ago, 50 pounds of brown fur and bad manners, and the specific loyalty of an animal who has also been abandoned and knows the value of a person who stays. I had no idea that my parents had left me $357,000. I had no idea that Darnell had stolen it. I had no idea that the house in Johnson City, the house where I slept on a couch for 5 months before being dropped at a train station, was purchased with the life insurance money that my dead mother and father had designated for me. I had no idea for 20 years, until Noel's text. 5 words. He stole what was yours. I did not call Noel back immediately. I waited 24 hours, not out of spite, out of the particular caution of a man who learned at 7 that responding to a Ledford's invitation is dangerous. I sat with the information for a full day. I went to work. I replaced a turbocharger on a Freightliner Cascadia. I ate lunch in the break room. I drove home. I fed Hatchet, and I sat on my bed and I looked at the 5 words and I decided, at 7:43 p.m. on Wednesday evening, to call. Noel. Rennick, thank you for calling back. What did he steal? She told me. All of it. The life insurance, $240,000, withdrawn in increments over 18 months. The savings, $47,000, emptied within 5 months. The house in Asheville, sold for $215,000, mortgage paid off, closing costs deducted, $70,000 in equity deposited into the trust account and then withdrawn over 4 months. $357,000, Noel said. That's what your parents left you. Every dollar of it went to my dad. He paid off his debts, bought a truck, put a down payment on the house. He spent your entire inheritance in 18 months. How do you know all this? My dad has pancreatic cancer, stage 4, diagnosed in September. He talks in his sleep now, muttering about the money and Monroe's kid. Colby and I went through his files. He kept everything, bank statements, withdrawal records, the closing documents on the Asheville house, and a letter from your parents' attorney, a man named Wendell Pickens, dated 2006, warning my dad that the withdrawals were illegal and advising him to return the funds. He kept the warning letter? He kept everything. I think he was afraid of it. Afraid to destroy it and afraid to act on it. So he locked it in a filing cabinet in the garage for 20 years. And you and Colby found it. Colby found it. He called me. We spent a week reading everything. And then we spent another week finding you. Why? Because you're our cousin. Because my dad threw you away. Because the life Colby and I had, the house, his college, my apartment, was bought with your parents' money. Money that was supposed to go to a 7-year-old orphan. We can't unknow that, Rennick, and we can't keep living on it. I drove to Johnson City the next Saturday, not for reconciliation, not for reunion, for documentation. I met Colby and Noel at a coffee shop on Roan Street, not at Darnell's house, because I would not enter that house. I would not sit on the couch where I spent 5 months sleeping because no one gave me a room. I would not stand in the kitchen where Fay Ledford said, "That kid is too much work." I would not breathe the air of a house that was bought with my mother's life insurance. Colby was 26, an EMT. Tall, quiet, the kind of man who runs toward emergencies for a living and is now running toward one in his own family. Noel was 23, veterinary assistant, smaller, fiercer, the one who had made the call, because Colby couldn't find the words. Colby brought the files. A manila folder thick with 20 years of evidence. I opened it on the coffee shop table and I read it the way I read a diagnostic report. Page by page, line by line, looking for the failure point, tracing the money from source to theft. Life insurance payout statements, $240,000. Deposited into the trust account on April 22, 2005. First withdrawal, $15,000 on April 30th, 2005, 8 days later. Darnell couldn't even wait 2 weeks. Savings account records, $47,000. Emptied by August 2005, the same month he dropped me at the train station. House sale closing statement, $215,000. Mortgage payoff, $140,000. Closing costs, $5,000. Proceeds, $70,000. Deposited into the trust. Withdrawn by December 2005. And the letter. From Wendell Pickens, attorney at law, Asheville, North Carolina. Dated March 12, 2006. One paragraph that said everything. Mr. Ledford, I am writing to advise you that the withdrawals from the Rennick-Ledford Trust account are inappropriate, potentially actionable, and in violation of your fiduciary duty as trustee. The funds in this account were designated by Monroe and Gretchen Ledford for the sole benefit of their minor son. I strongly advise you to return the withdrawn funds to the trust immediately and to consult independent legal counsel regarding your obligations. Failure to do so may result in civil and criminal liability. Darnell received this letter in March 2006. He did not return the money. He did not consult legal counsel. He put the letter in a filing cabinet and locked it. And then he lived in the house that the money bought for 19 more years. I closed the folder. I looked at Colby. Your father stole $357,000 from a 7-year-old orphan. Yes. And then he abandoned me at a train station because I was an inconvenience. Yes, I'm sorry, Rennick. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize for him. You were 6 when this happened. You didn't know. I know now, and I want to make it right. Colby told me what he and Noel had decided. Darnell's estate, the house, the truck, savings, and accounts, was worth approximately $380,000. Colby and Noel would refuse their inheritance. All of it would go to me. It won't replace what he stole, but it's built on what he stole. The house was purchased with your trust money. The savings accumulated because my dad never had to pay back what he took. It's yours, Rennick. It was always yours. You don't have to do that. We do, because the alternative is living in a house we know was bought with a dead couple's money that was meant for their orphaned son. I can't do that. Noel can't do that. We're not our father. Noel spoke. Rennick, Colby, and I grew up being told you were a problem child who ran away, that you were difficult, that my parents tried their best and you just couldn't be helped. I believed that for 23 years, and now I know it was all a lie. You didn't run away. You were thrown away by a man who had already taken everything you had. I looked at my cousins. These 2 people I hadn't seen since they were children, since I was a child. They were sitting in a coffee shop in the town where I was abandoned, holding a folder full of evidence that their father was a thief, and offering me everything he left behind. Not because they owed me, because they chose to. There are 2 kinds of people in the world. People who come back and people who don't. Colby and Noel came back, 20 years late, but they came back. I went to Darnell's house, against Owen's advice. Owen had said on the phone the night before, "Don't go, son. That man doesn't deserve your time." Owen was right. Owen is always right. But I went anyway, because I needed to stand in front of the man who left me at a train station and hear him explain why, in the same voice that had said, "I'll be back in an hour," and then hadn't. The house was on a residential street in Johnson City, a 2-story, 3-bedroom house with a 2-car garage, and a yard that needed mowing, and a front porch with a rocking chair that nobody rocked in anymore. The house that cost $197,000 in 2005, a $45,000 down payment pulled from my trust fund, a mortgage paid with money that should have been mine. Darnell was in a hospital bed in the living room, 52 years old, pancreatic cancer, 3 to 6 months. But looking at him, I would have guessed 3 weeks. He weighed maybe 87 pounds. His skin was the color of old paper. His eyes, when they found me in the doorway, were the eyes of a man who has been expecting a visitor he has been dreading for 20 years. Rennick. Darnell, you came. Not for you, for me. I need to hear you say it. Say what? That you stole $357,000 from a 7-year-old orphan. That you spent my parents' life insurance on your truck and your house and your debts. That you dropped me at a train station because once the money was gone, I was just a cost. Say it." The room was quiet. The particular quiet of a room where a man is dying and the truth is heavier than the morphine. "I took the money," Darnell said. His voice was thin, the voice of a man whose body was consuming itself. "All of it. I told myself I'd pay it back. I never did." "And the train station?" "Faye wanted you gone. She said you were too much work. I drove you to the station because I didn't know what else to do. I thought you'd come back. I was 7. I know. You left a 7-year-old at a train station because your wife told you to. I was weak, Rennick. I was a weak man with your parents' money and a wife who didn't want their kid. And I made the worst decision a man can make. I chose convenience over responsibility." "You didn't choose convenience. You chose theft. You stole my childhood and my inheritance. You took everything my parents left for me and you spent it on yourself, and then you threw me away like a receipt. I'm sorry. You're dying, Darnell. Sorry is easy when you're dying. Sorry would have meant something 20 years ago, when I was sleeping on a stranger's couch in Kingsport wondering why my uncle didn't come back to the train station. Sorry would have meant something when I was 12, and Gertrude died and I had to start over again in another house with another family that wasn't mine. Sorry would have meant something when I aged out at 18 with nothing, no money, no family, no foundation, because you had stolen the foundation my parents built for me. I know. Do you know what I did after the train station? Do you know what happened to the 7-year-old you bet would come back crying in an hour? I don't. 4 foster homes. 11 years. I slept on other people's couches and other people's beds in other people's houses for 11 years because my uncle stole my money and dropped me at a train station. I aged out at 18 with nothing. No trust fund, no savings, no family. I became a diesel mechanic because a retired trucker named Owen Jessup taught me to fix engines because the state of Tennessee didn't teach me anything else. Everything I have, the job, the truck, the house I rent, the dog, I built from the floor of a system that you put me in, with my own hands, on a foundation of nothing, because you stole the foundation my parents built for me. Darnell was crying, the thin, waterless crying of a man whose body barely had the resources to produce tears. I watched him cry. I did not feel pity. I did not feel rage. I felt the particular clarity of a man who has just closed a 20-year diagnostic file and found the exact cause of the failure. I don't forgive you, Darnell. He looked at me. I'm not here to forgive you. Forgiveness is for people who tried and fell short. You didn't try. You took a 7-year-old's money, and then you threw the 7-year-old away, and you never looked for me. Not once. In 20 years, you never searched. You never called CPS to ask if I was okay. You never Googled my name. You never drove to Knoxville. You just let me disappear because my disappearance was convenient. And now you're dying, and you want me to say something that makes the dying easier. I'm not going to do that. Rennick, the 7-year-old you left at the train station survived, not because of you, in spite of you. And the man standing in front of you right now, the diesel mechanic from Knoxville who makes $52,000 a year and rents a house and has a rescue dog, that man is worth more than everything you stole. Because that man was built by himself, and everything you built was built with someone else's money. I walked out. Through the living room, past the couch, not the same couch, but in the same position, against the same wall, in the same room where I had slept for 5 months in 2005. Through the front door, onto the porch with the rocking chair, into my Colorado. I drove back to Knoxville in silence. No radio, no phone. Just the highway and the engine and the particular quiet that follows the closing of something that has been open for 20 years. Darnell Ledford died on November 18th, 2025. 3 weeks after I visited him. I did not attend the funeral. I did not send flowers. I did not write a note. I owed him nothing alive, and I owe him nothing dead. Faye did not contact me. She has not contacted me since August 2005. I assume she was at the funeral. I assume she sat in the front row of whatever church hosted the service and accepted condolences from people who did not know that her husband had stolen an orphan's inheritance, and that she had laughed about leaving the orphan at a train station. I assume she went home afterward to the house that my parents' money purchased, and slept in the bed that my parents' money provided, and felt whatever Fay Ledford feels, which I suspect is not much. Colby and Noel followed through. They refused the estate. Their attorney worked with mine, a woman named Vera Schiff in Knoxville whom Owen recommended, to redirect the inheritance. The house sold for $286,000. Combined with Darnell's truck, savings, and accounts, the total came to approximately $380,000. All of it transferred to me. $380,000. Roughly the $357,000 that was stolen, plus 20 years of appreciation on the house. The math is not exact. Justice rarely is. I sat with the money for 2 weeks. I did not spend it. I did not celebrate. I went to work. I fixed diesel engines. I came home. I fed Hatchet. And I thought about what to do with $380,000 that was blood money. Not in the criminal sense, but in the literal sense. Money that existed because my parents' blood was on the asphalt of I-40, and their life insurance paid out, and their 7-year-old son was supposed to receive it and didn't. I made 3 decisions. The first, I paid off Owen Jessup's mortgage. Owen's house in Knoxville, a small 3-bedroom where he had fostered 7 boys over 15 years, including me, had $78,000 remaining on the mortgage. I called the bank, paid it, done. Owen protested when I told him. Rennick, I can't accept that. Owen, you taught me to fix engines. You let me live in your house. You showed up to my first day of work and shook my hand. You're the reason I have a life. The least I can do is make sure you keep your house. Son, don't argue. It's already paid. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Your mother would be proud of you. I hope so. She would. I didn't know her. But I know what she made, and what she made is good. The second, I set up a scholarship fund. The Monroe and Gretchen Ledford Memorial Fund, $100,000 seed money. Managed by the East Tennessee Community Foundation, provides $5,000 grants to foster children aging out of the Tennessee system for vocational training, trade school tuition, tools, or first-month rent. The things that nobody provides when you turn 18 and the system stops. I named it after my parents because they are the ones who earned the money. Not Darnell, not me. Monroe, the electrician, and Gretchen, the dental hygienist, who worked and saved and insured themselves and planned for a future they never got to see. The fund is their legacy. Not the theft, not the train station, the fund. The third, I put the remaining $202,000 into savings. I did not buy a house. I did not buy a new truck. I did not quit my job. I went to work on Monday morning the same way I go to work every Monday morning. 6 a.m., Ridgeway Fleet Services, coveralls and coffee, and a Freightliner with a misfire on cylinder 3 that needed my attention. Because Rennick Ledford is not a man who changes his life because money arrived. Money has arrived and departed in my story before. $357,000 arrived when I was 7 and departed without my knowledge. This time, the money arrived with documentation and a dead man's confession, and 2 cousins who chose to do the right thing. And this time, I chose what to do with it. Not Darnell, not the system. Me. I still drive the 2015 Colorado. I still rent the 2-bedroom on the east side. I still have Hatchet, who is currently asleep on the couch. A couch that I chose, in a house that I chose, in a life that I built with my own hands, on a foundation that my uncle tried to destroy. Owen came over for dinner last Sunday. I made the chili that Gertrude taught me, the only recipe I carry from my foster years. The taste of being valued by a woman in a yellow house in Morristown who died when I was 12, and who I still miss every time I stir the pot. How do you feel? Owen asked. The same. The money didn't change anything? The money changed my bank account. It didn't change me. I was built before the money came back. I was built at the train station and the foster homes and your garage. The money is just the receipt, the proof that something was taken and something was returned. But the thing that matters, the thing that Darnell couldn't steal because it wasn't in the trust fund, was already built. And what's that? Me. Owen looked at me across the table. 71 years old. A retired trucker who had fostered 7 boys and watched most of them struggle, and watched a few of them land and watched one of them, me, turn into a man who could say me without flinching. Your parents would be proud, Rennick. I know. I just wish they were here to say it. They're here. Every time you fix an engine, every time you show up at 6 a.m., every time you feed that ridiculous dog, they're here. They built the parts. You assembled them. That's how parents work, even the dead ones. I don't know if that's true. I want it to be. I want Monroe and Gretchen Ledford to be here, somehow, in the diesel grease under my fingernails and the chili on the stove and the scholarship fund that carries their names. I want them to know that the 7-year-old who was left at a train station didn't stay there, that he walked, that he kept walking, that he is still walking, 20 years later, in a rented house in Knoxville, with a rescue dog and a steady job, and $202,000 in the bank, and a paid-off mortgage on the house of the man who taught him that showing up is the only thing that counts. I don't forgive Darnell Ledford. I will never forgive Darnell Ledford. Forgiveness requires an acknowledgement that the harm was an aberration, a departure from an otherwise good character. Darnell's harm was not an aberration. It was his character. He stole from a child and abandoned the child and lived off the theft for 20 years, and only confessed because cancer forced his hand. That is not a good man who made a mistake. That is a weak man who made a choice, and the choice cost me my childhood. But I will not carry his name like a wound. I will carry my parents' names, Monroe and Gretchen, the electrician and the dental hygienist who left their son $357,000 and a life insurance policy and a 3-bedroom house with a front porch and a good school district, because they were the kind of parents who prepared for the worst, and the worst came, and the preparation was stolen by a man who didn't deserve custody of a goldfish, let alone a child. Their names are on a scholarship fund now. Their money is helping foster kids get started in the world, the same world that chewed me up and spit me out, and then, somehow, through Gertrude and Owen and a gas station stranger named Pauline, put me back together. I am 27 years old. I am a diesel mechanic. I make $52,000 a year. I rent a house. I drive a Chevy Colorado. I have a rescue dog named Hatchet who sleeps on the couch, on a couch that belongs to me, in a house where nobody leaves and nobody gets left. That's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. If you sat through this entire story, if you felt the bench, the gas station, the couch, the garage, the chili, then you already know why I told it. Not every kid at the train station gets found. Not every foster child gets an Owen. Not every stolen inheritance gets returned. But every person listening to this knows someone who was left somewhere. A train station. A bad home. A system that stopped caring. And that person is still walking. If you're that person, keep walking. The bench is behind you. What's ahead is yours. If you know that person, call them. Not tomorrow. Now. Tell them the 5 words that matter more than the ones Noel sent me. Not, he stole what was yours. Something better. Something that Gertrude said to me every night before I went to bed in the yellow house in Morristown. Something simple. I'm glad you're here. Say it, mean it. And then stay, subscribe. The next story is already waiting. Just like you were.